I mean, today's been a good day. I think I've done like 3 of these speeches. So obviously today's been very productive on that end, mainly because I'm evading my code. I have a customer signing up next week and I promised them this feature. So I'm gonna have to code every single day, all night, so I can get Sunday off. So that's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Thank God a lot of it is behind administrator views. So, I mean, I could technically just like add them to the data. I just can't do that. I got to do it a little bit properly. So yeah, these next 3 days are going to absolutely suck. I do want to say something though. I think the problem is I've created so much content now that the content itself to me is valuable. I understand there isn't that many views yet, but one day I want to turn these things into books because these are my philosophies, right? And I think they're correct. And the problem is, as time goes on, I make more videos, I make more content. It's impossible to keep track of all this. It really is. Like, if you go on Substack, I think there's, honest to God, I think there's hundreds of full posts of thought, like 25% are pretty good, and then notes, and again 10% of those are like pretty good, right? So what am I supposed to do, sift through all of them? And then there's all these videos I'm making. It's becoming unbearable to actually manage all of it. I don't know how people do this, and to have ownership, replication, it's very difficult. And I hope you can understand how hard this is. You probably don't care because you're like, who cares about your thoughts? They matter. Trust me, one day, a lot of you are going to look back at this and be like, how the hell do you think of all this? Well, I just have a lot of time. I spent years traveling without working. I would just hang out, party, hang out, read, think, try things out, experiment. And yeah, so it's been kind of a wild ride. I mean, I'm almost 32, so I think any 32-year-old who's given life enough thought over this much time and who's had this many experiences obviously is going to have something to add to the world, to the conversation, to thought, to philosophy in general. And a lot of it really is the philosophy of humanity and the philosophy of being a human being on planet Earth and what that's like. Really, if you think about it, the PhD can be given to anyone. And that's because thought itself can relate to anything in this universe. It can be the concepts that have arisen. I think a lot of people think PhD, oh, must be physics. You're studying the philosophy of being and, the entire universe itself, and that the first question of where did we come from? There's so many other things, right? I mean, post-creation or post-Big Bang, whatever you want to call it, the rules that have been set up, the emergent properties of the universe itself, whatever is within it is a field of study. And I believe that I've contributed a lot to at least the study of humanity within that, which is, kind of cool, to say the least. One of the things that I do want to mention is the theory of exceptionalism. And I think, if you really think about it, there's, 8 billion people on the planet, whatever the number, it doesn't matter. It's definitely more than 7. And what's really important is, the Pareto principle, right? I've already mentioned this, the theory of economic spaces, where essentially the gains only occur in every single space and in the, top 5 or whatever, what have you, right? The 80-20 principle, however way you want to look at it, the distribution is at the top end, right? And I think the average man is average. And that's just kind of the way it is. But what's really interesting about men is that actually they are on both extremes. And men either go really, really crazy on one end, or they'll be the most extreme on the other end. And there is obviously a bunch that are just in the middle too. And I think you really have to ask yourself, if that is true and the gains are only felt at the extreme end of every single space, how likely are you to be on that extreme end in whatever you're pursuing? And I call that exceptionalism. And you might say, well, I'm okay being average. Perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with you wanting to be average. Just understand kind of where you stand, and you probably do know where you stand. And if you're okay with it, perfectly fine. You didn't pursue anything. You do have to ask yourself, if you did, just a thought experiment. You probably don't even want to do that, but if you're watching this entire video, you probably do. just as a thought experiment, ask yourself, if you did choose to be exceptional at a field, right, at an economic space, a space in general, or any space, okay, could you be exceptional? And what does it take to be exceptional? So we understand that to actually have the gains beyond the average, you have to be in that exceptional category, right, at that top end of anything, okay? So that's point number one. Point number two is, well, if you were to decide to be exceptional at anything, just as a thought experiment, could you? And what would it take to get there? And it would take a lot of discipline, it would take a lot of hard work, it would take a lot of patience, perseverance, those really good qualities that absolutely you can have, and intelligence to kind of navigate the competition, which will inevitably try to destroy you, as they're also trying to get to the exceptional category and try to break you down. A lot of people also work off of status, and status is not absolute, status is relational. So imagine all your friends have Honda Civics, then all of a sudden one guy just goes and gets a Land Rover and it's sick. Just off of that, all of a sudden all your cars are pretty shit, aren't they? Just in relation to him, right? If all of you are making $60K a year and all of a sudden one guy rolls up and he's like, I just got the sick marketing job, I'm making 600, has a bigger house. Again, it's not absolute, right? It doesn't really matter, but relationally speaking, it's kind of changed a little bit, that dynamic, right? When you go to his house versus when he comes to your house, you can't escape these things. And yeah, I think being exceptional in any category and working hard is something good. And I think, a lot of times it's a lifestyle too. Like, I remember I met this girl in Australia and she was always getting ready to go to the gym. Also a little bit of a, fun-loving gal, let's just say that, at the hostel or wherever we were at. And yeah, she was fit, and she would tell me, she's like, well, I'm going to the gym, you can come if you want. And I was like, I don't really go to the gym, whatever. And she's like, Shan, you gotta go to the gym, man, like, it's a whole lifestyle. And I was like, what do you mean? She said, going to the gym isn't just going to the gym. You gotta get to bed on time, you gotta eat right, you gotta get home, you gotta get your stuff ready. It takes 2 hours to be at the gym properly. She was fit, right? And what you realize is when you're actually choosing this exceptional path, it actually does kind of round out your entire life. All of a sudden, you're not gonna drink as much. Maybe you're not gonna stay up as late, unless you're me, like last night, and I knew I had to finish all this code, and I was totally distracting myself from it on occasion. But again, obviously I wouldn't do that every night. Right now I got to finish by Sunday, so I'm trying to finish this thing. I'm very happy to go to bed early tonight to do that. So it's an entire lifestyle change to be exceptional. You're willing to do crazy things and to put things off, to put off your own, maybe your current happiness or whatever. You want to get to bed on time, wake up early, to be able to do all this and take care of your body, to be strong, to be, focused. So I think the theory of exceptionalism is just, once you actually choose that path and you know why you're doing it specifically, and that life isn't given to you, the good things of life don't just happen on accident, and you're not special in any possible way. You might have gifts that you'll learn along the way as you start to work hard. Maybe you have these incredible gifts you didn't even know you had, but that's besides the point. The point is, you're gonna get nothing unless you actually go through this. Or if you get lucky, but that's not happening, bro. Like, nobody wants to give you money. And I think you start to realize that, it's actually a lot more like Animal Planet than you really think once you actually start to go after these things and you learn about what's actually going on. And at least it's painful when you learn this. It really is, that, hey, wait a second, the things that my mother told me aren't real. Like, people aren't that nice, and they are nice, but they're just not gonna give you free stuff. Why would they? They're also broke. Most people are, and even if they are rich and they just give it to you, it just makes it weird. The dynamic becomes weird, and all of a sudden you're working. It's just, these things are that's just the way things are, and it sucks. And the sooner you realize it, the sooner you start working towards that exceptionalism, you just start to accept it. And at least you take the power back, right? It sucks, obviously, the world is like this. I hate that the natural order of the world is in this way. You have to work hard, the things aren't given to you. You have to be exceptional. But at least you take the power back in your own hands. You don't just wait for it to happen from the sky. You know, once you start to realize, hey, the harder I work, the more results I'm seeing. The more calls I make, one of them's going to pick up. And yeah, it sucks. It really does suck. But the best thing about being exceptional is eventually the work gets easier. But just being a normal person who's just doing day-to-day, 9 to 5, it never ends, bro. It never ends. The inflation, you're just constantly fighting it. You're always fighting inflation. You're always fighting interest rates. Even if you have money, everything's falling apart. Another thing about the world, right? You're always fighting disorder, chaos, entropy. But the difference is you at least have, help. You're tuning the machine. You're working on your business. You're working on, maybe your skill set, whatever, and you're becoming stronger and better capable, better able. And so those are the things that come with exceptionalism. And I think, other things in life too, like you're going to get thrown curveballs all the time and you're just going to be more okay with it. Whatever. Spotify subscription gone? Fine. Listen to YouTube. That doesn't work? Radio. Radio sucks? Silence. It's fine, bro. It's all fine.